You may have seen the news. I covered a little bit earlier today. Consumer prices jumped 5% in May at the fastest. This is the fastest pace since the summer of 2008, just before the market went. They say headline consumer prices rose 5% year over year in May, the fastest pace since August 2008, and higher than Wall Street expectations. The 3.8% rise in the core inflation rate, which excludes foods and energy prices, was the sharpest increase in nearly 3 decades. Surging used car prices helped drive much of the inflation gains. Initial jobless claims totaled 376,000, a touch higher than the estimate. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. You got a bunch of weird articles and you can't really believe the news. This is an official number. Maybe it's lower. Maybe the number's a lot higher. We had Max Kaiser on the show. Many of you are probably familiar with Max. He's the Orange Pill podcast guy, and he's very, very bullish on Bitcoin. He said the inflation rate's probably closer to 10 or 15%, but the Fed's not going to tell you. The government's not going to let you know because that would disrupt a whole bunch of the system. Interest rates, Social Security payouts. So they're going to try and say it's as low as possible. Do we trust the mainstream media? After everything I've seen over the past 5 years, no. How do I know this article about the consumer price index is even real? Maybe there is no consumer price index. I don't even know what to believe at this point. But we do have this other article, which I found interesting. This is an op-ed from the Seattle Times. Don't ignore the warnings of an imminent market crash. This guy says, Harry S. Dent Jr. has been a soothsayer of sadness and gloom for ages now, and has spent a lot of time on the wrong side of the record bull market recovery since the financial crisis of 2008. Currently, he is calling for the stock market to crash with lightning speed, potentially starting within the next 6 weeks. Now, I don't know if that's true. It sounds a bit outlandish. It's probably one of the more doom-saying stories that are out there. Because if you read mainstream media, they're telling everybody it's all going to be okay. They're like, oh, yeah, it's just, demand hasn't caught up to supply yet. And once it does, it's going to be a big boom for everybody. But something doesn't feel right.
It feels just like I wasn't there, but right before the Great Depression, 1920. Mm-hmm. It just I was studying it, and it's like this is what happened. The inflation starts, the crash is like a 3-month process or of several. It's a multi-month. It doesn't just happen in 3 days. And so we're probably in the middle of it right now. That's why we're seeing 15% inflation across the board.
How many people have been talking about have you been following the GameStop, AMC stock?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Now I think there's a potential danger there. Of course, they're saying it's going to be a big short sell. Everyone's going to make a ton of money. I have some AMC stock, so we'll see. But I don't have a lot of risk. I'm not exposed all that much. I don't have that much money. I have, a little bit of AMC stock, not a whole lot. And a lot of people are leveraging hard for these meme stocks. And, Ian's saying it's a lot like the Great Depression.
Yes.
What happens when a bunch of working class people put tons of money into, say, like Dogecoin or something, or these meme stocks, and they leverage hard against it? So you've got some people have said they've leveraged all their assets and their credit lines to buy like $100K in AMC because they know it's going to go up. What happens when that pops? What if there's a market crash in 6 weeks?
Is that what's happening, you think? I mean, you think people are getting, I remember before there was some concern and not knowing enough about the market, there was some concern, it seemed legitimate, that some people might be getting lured into this unwittingly. Do you think that some of that's been happening?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm bullish on crypto. And I'll tell you this. If you look at the market pre-2008 crash, the people who held on to their assets for dear life, they made out like bandits.
Right.
The market recovered and boom, they're back up. But a lot of people, I hear these stories. I was not alive during the Great Depression, and believe it or not, I'm only 35. But the stories I heard was that people were making all this money in the stock market. And so once they saw how everyone else was getting rich, they started buying on margin. They started leveraging their assets and credits to buy all the stock. And then when it dropped, they were like, my life is over. So what if that's happening now? Yeah. What if these people think, and I don't want to be bearish on these things. Look, I bought AMC. I'm actually of the opinion it's probably going to go up, and it's the hedge funds that are going to eat it. But if the hedge funds eat it and they get a bailout, there's going to be a massive wave of something that hits everybody.
Well, I think this comes back to what you were talking about before with the houses and real estate. I think that people, even though they're trying to warn people, don't worry about anything. People see the signs. People see what's happening with inflation, and what are people doing? People want to buy houses, even though they understand that with inflation, the value is going to take a hit, but that's something that's long term. And I hear people all the time, friends, not necessarily finance professionals, but saying, put your money in something real that's going to last. We know different commodities like artwork Even things I hear people talking about, not just Bitcoin, baseball cards, things
NFTs,
like that.
You see those NFTs?
No, what is that?
Non-fungible tokens.
Oh, right.
People
Okay,
are spending ridiculous amounts of money on nonsense.
Yeah.
So I gotta wonder, man, if you got a bunch of young people right now. So I mean, I think about this, like, who are these people who are the retail investors that are investing heavily in crypto and these meme stocks? And what if there is a market crash? I mean, we're looking at consumer prices skyrocketing. People are worried about the dollar. I don't know.
It's the margin. It's the margins that make me nervous. So I bought a bunch of crypto, Ethereum, and then I took out a loan to buy more Ethereum, basically a margin on margin, with my own crypto. And so the Ethereum went from like 1,100 to 800 value, and they were like, margin call. If this goes to 700, we're gonna have to sell all your Ethereum and pay back the loan that you took out. And I started to sweat. It went back up as I had anticipated. And I was lucky, and I just cleared my margin. I can't. I'm not sitting on a margin right now. Like, yeah, if the economy crashes, it will recover. So if you're holding assets, they'll still recover.
But if you're holding on margin and they do a call,
yes,
and then they take everything from you,
that's the problem. And I can't give advice, but that's what I did. Was I cleared my margins.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe the meme stocks are just going to skyrocket, but it's beyond all of this. It's not just, you know, the crypto or stuff. It's Joe Biden. You know, they're still doing this $300 a week unemployment stimulus thing, but I think around like 30 states or so have like now canceled it,
Right.
Because people got to get back to work. But
A lot of the red states are trying to block this, get people back to work. In the state we're in now, South Carolina, the governor, the governor has at least tried to put his foot down, and I think that's happening in other red states too. People are concerned about it. How are we going to get Americans back to work? How are we going to? Because you can see it also undermining local and state economies as well. It's really dangerous.
yeah, I have to wonder when you look at some of these charts. There was a vaccination chart we talked about a couple times. NPR put it out. The states with the highest rate of vaccination are all blue. The state with the lowest vaccination are all red. The only states that defy that anomaly are the states that, you know, Trump and Trump supporters are contesting for the, you know, in the election, which is also, you know, just kind of a funny thing to point out. But I have to wonder, you know, the red states are clearly defiant to the blue states. The blue states want hard lockdowns. They want command economy. They want total economic control. At what point do the red states just say no? Because with Texas and Florida reopening and banning vaccine passports, clearly they're telling Biden to go shove it. But I mean, can this keep up for the next few years? What happens when, you know, as I pointed this out the other day, if someone who lives in Texas can't go to Washington because they have vaccine passports, right? So I just bring that up in the context of, you know, where we're at economically and how, what did we see before COVID? These blue states were in massive debt. They were failing and spiraling. And then all of a sudden we get COVID. Then as soon as Joe Biden gets in, he starts handing out all the cash, which is a tax on people in those red states, taking the money from the middle class, devaluing their currency in their savings account.
Yeah, it's reparations, in a sense.
But to the wealthy blue states,
right? No, it's brutal because also it's not just political payoff, right? You're hurting also your enemies, right? You're taking the money from red states and handing it off to blue states. And why? Because even though that you destroyed your city, even though you were part of rioting last spring and summer and you tore your city to shreds, don't worry, Joe Biden's got the bill. Don't worry, you can keep this all closed. Yeah. Don't worry, people don't have to work because Uncle Joe's covering it.
Yeah, it was basically like let them burn everything down, blame it on Trump, and then Joe Biden will cover the debts.
Absolutely.
They sacrificed the people of this country for political gain. So how long until the red states are just like, nah, ain't doing it?
I mean, I don't know what's happening now. I mean, it's interesting. Are people saying, yeah, just, you know, if you're going to come here, behave yourself. If you're going to come to the red states, if you're going to come to Florida. I mean, what, Florida's still getting, they must still be getting maybe more, 1,000 new residents a day. So who's going down there?
And in Texas, the rumor is you can't buy a house from anywhere. Everyone's just desperately trying to buy everything up in Texas.
Right.
But I think about the conundrum here is that, you know, Washington, New York, they're starting to increase the vaccine passport things. They're putting restrictions on who can come there, while Texas and Florida are doing the opposite. That means these blue states will be able to reap the benefits and the rewards of the labor of these red states, not the other way around.
Right.
It's we're getting to this dangerous point where, I mean, we're really close to neo-feudalism.
Do people want to go? I mean, do people want to go to New York, right? When you're saying I can't go to New York unless I have a COVID passport, I say, okay, I won't go to New York.
What if you work for American Airlines out of Dallas Fort Worth?
That's bad, right? And you got to fly in for
a meeting. They say, okay, so we got a senior VP in Dallas. Hey, we got a meeting with someone from the New York JFK administration or whatever, Port Authority.
It might be an exciting time in the country politically, where the states start reasserting what they're about, and you have the governor of Texas and others stepping up for American Airlines, if that's the way it's going to go, stepping up and saying, we're looking out for our business as well, and we understand, and here's how we're going to push back against New York. If New York tries to hurt our business people, we're going to push back on them in this way.
But I think the problem is, it's always gonna favor those who are the most stubborn in terms of the negotiation, right? So if New York says, look, the people of New York demand the Excelsior Pass. If you want to come here and go into this building, you need your pass. And then Texas can complain all they want, and New York will be like, look, you want business from us? What are you going to do about it? The issue is, you've got stubborn New York making a demand, and you've got more libertarian or libertarian-esque Dallas-Fort Worth, people saying, fine, we'll just do it. It's easier, and we get the deal done. So the pressure from the stubborn states will work on those who are less concerned about some of these issues.
It's easier in some ways if Texas voters, for instance, if Texas voters say, if you make that deal, you're in big trouble. If the governor makes that deal and is going to force us to conduct our business.
No, I don't mean that. I mean American Airlines employee.
Right.
He's got a meeting in New York with some big company for food or something. New York says you must be vaccinated. You must have your Excelsior Pass. No one in Texas is going to force this guy to do it. He just literally can't do the meeting.
Right.
And so what will happen is the employees at American Airlines will just choose to abide by New York law.
Yeah, this is a big thing. That's going to compel different people if their living if their living depends on whether or not they have to get this shot. But maybe there will be different consortiums of states, maybe Texas and Florida and Idaho will say, we'll find some way to team together and break some of the power of some of the coastal powers.
Yeah, maybe. I just think everyone takes the path of least resistance, or most people do. So long as New York puts these heavy pressures on people, if they want money and access, they'll just give in to whatever New York wants, or Washington, or whatever state they got to operate in.
Right.
It can be relaxed in New York, but they will just set the standard for the most difficult. So my concern at this point is, maybe you're right. Maybe a bunch of states form regional compacts. Aren't we just talking about states aligning against states?
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that in 2020.
Yeah.
48 states were involved in lawsuits against each other.
Right.
That was crazy. Yeah.
Right. That's what in a sense, it's kind of an interesting time. So
may you live in interesting times.
Yeah. Well, I don't want it to be that interesting, of course. But I mean, look, if we talk all the time about how dire things are, how drastic things are, what kind of interesting times we're living in, then the very least people are going to have to stand up and say, like, you know what, I don't know, I'm going to have to make a decision. Do I want to get this shot to be able to do business in New York, or how do I get around this, or what are the different compacts I'm going to make with colleagues, with political powers? How are we going to push back on this?
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.